So, is it true that your position is that evolution cannot be proven to be true, or is it your position that evolution is actually false? It cannot be true.
My position is that it cannot be true.
Not that it cannot be proven to be true.
No, my position is that it is false.
It is false.
It is flat out false.
So, ignoring religion, what is your proof? How do you prove that evolution not just can't be proven to be true, but is actually false?
Yeah. So again, this is a very good question, and when you go in a discussion with an evolutionist, he will tell you this: if it's false, proof that it is false. But then, is this the way that the scientific method works? So we need first to look into a question in principle, a foundational question: are things by default false or true? Okay, so let's say I am telling you
they are by default false.
And they are by default false. If I am telling you, for example, you are Russian, and I'm just saying that you're Russian, okay? And
the burden of the proof,
I have to prove that you're Russian, okay? If I'm telling you, for example, that this phenomena, we see the phenomena, but the reason that this phenomena is occurring is because so and so. I'm saying, it becomes a hypothesis. I have a reason for saying so. But then, since I'm saying, I'm offering an explanation, I need to provide evidence. Okay? Now, there is the aspect of proof and there is the aspect of evidence, and typically proof is when you are in the discipline of mathematics or law. And there is an aspect of evidence, which is when you are in the scientific discipline in general. So, irrespective where you are, but essentially, if I am claiming something, I need to present, the burden of proof is on me. Okay? And then, how am I going to prove something to be true? Either it's axiomatic, or it is I can prove so or provide evidence through reason, or I provide evidence through experimentation. Okay? So, is evolution axiomatic? Obviously not. Axioms are very basic things. Parallel lines do not meet.
What does axiomatic mean?
It requires no proof.
Oh, it's self-evident.
Self-evident.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I'm telling you parallel lines don't meet, parallel lines don't meet because by definition they are they don't meet.
But I can't really prove it any other way because
I cannot just pick all the parallel lines in the world, or cannot follow two parallel lines up to infinity and show you that they do not meet.
Yeah, but it just makes sense that they don't meet.
Because I define parallel lines,
yes,
that
they just keep going next to each other.
they do not meet.
Yeah.
So okay, so 1 + 1 = 2 is a basic foundation in arithmetic and hence mathematics. It's definitional. So you have to start from very few axioms, as few axioms as possible, and then you start building.
Obviously, evolution is not.
Evolution is not axiomatic at all, because even there, its assertions are really very far-fetched. That all of this order, all of this apparent design, is coming from complete chaos. So, is it logical? It becomes then the second thing.
What you're saying is, those who claim evolution to be true have the burden of proof to actually prove it. And what you're saying is, the proof, whatever evidence, whatever proof they have, or they think they have offered, doesn't hold up, right? It's not.
Yeah. So.
Which means that it's false because we started with the assertion that things start on the assumption that they are false until proven otherwise.
Absolutely.
Since that's the starting point, then evolution is false to begin with, unless proven otherwise. And what you're saying is it has not been proven otherwise, which means it's false.
Yep.
Okay.
So you put a hypothesis, and there is the null hypothesis in front of it, and typically what you should do is that you say that this is my hypothesis, and this is the way to falsify it. If you do not put a falsification criteria, then you'd rather not say the hypothesis altogether. Okay, because it means you can say anything. And so number one, you need to provide the evidence that you are correct. And sometimes providing the evidence is by showing that your theory makes predictions, and that those predictions would be consistently accurate or consistent with observation. Okay, so let's for example look at what Newton did. So Newton said, okay, that there is something that gravitates towards something, and my theory is that there is this force called gravity, and the way it works is that it depends on the masses of the objects and the inverse square of the distance, and there is a constant. And then to show this is what's happening, then you make calculations of how much this force is, and force causes acceleration, and you show, for example, that you can calculate how much time does it take for the moon to go around the earth, because the moon is going around because there is a force, and the force causes this acceleration, and this acceleration causes this continuous falling that you see as an apparent orbiting, etc. And you calculate this for the moon, and you calculate it for the apple, and you calculate it for this and that, and you show that it works on those objects and those objects, and it keeps providing accurate predictions until, of course, it was proven that it's not accurate all the time. But you show that at least within a certain limit, there is a certain scope where this seems quite good. And then there is the other aspect, which I think is very important, which is realism. So you show that this thing works, but then somebody says, but okay, it works, so we will use it because pragmatically it's good. We need to calculate orbits, we need to calculate escape velocities to fire rockets in space, we need to do this and that, we need to calculate forces because this is very important to create mechanical things, etc. But what you are putting on the table is that there is this force between things, and this force instantaneously takes action. And what is the reality of this force? Is it like a string that is connecting things, and how many strings are there? We don't notice any strings. So how come there is this action at a distance and it's instantaneous? And we know that things cannot be instantaneous because there is the speed of light or the speed of causality, and this seems to not make sense. So is it real that there is gravity, or it is not real? If it is real that there is gravity or not real, maybe it doesn't make a very big difference for our existential questions. All right?
Life goes on.
Yeah, it becomes important because at some point it doesn't work. And then you need to think of other things like relativity and curvature of space-time, etc. And this new mathematical model solves problems on the larger scales. For very big planets, for motion of galaxies, for etc. Stars in galaxies, etc. Those things will not provide correct solutions if you use Newtonian mechanics. But then the same question comes again. Are you telling me that space bends? Space is nothing. So bends is a property of something. So you're making something, giving nothing a property of something, and it's counterintuitive, and it is against the original axioms of that nothing is not something. Something becomes something, but nothing does not become something.
What you're saying is just because equations allow you to make some predictions doesn't necessarily mean that
it's real
with reality.
Yes. So then there is the question of realism, which is a philosophical question. So some people say that truth, there are 4 schools in philosophy. So some say that truth is something that corresponds to fact. So these are the realists, right? And some say that truth is something that is coherent. So if I look from this side or from that side, I get the same thing. It is not acceptable that truth is not coherent. It doesn't add up. You do the calculation from this side, it gives you 4. You do it from this side, it gives you 3.5. One of them has to be correct. And some say no, it needs to be pragmatic. And this is where evolutionists sit. I want to feel okay with the universe around me. And then there are the fourth, which I consider nonsense, which truth is not important altogether. Nihilism, they call it. You don't need to know truth. You don't need to use the word truth at all. Instead of saying that it is true that you are a human being, I'll just say that you're a human being. Truth is not important, which is, okay, forget about those guys. But then, yes, I would say truth needs to be a representation that is corresponding to reality, and it needs to be coherent. But sorry, truth, pragmatism is not an aspect of truth. If you like it or you don't like it, it's subjective. So we cannot make evolution true because it makes us feel comfortable about there is no God. I want to feel comfortable that there is no God. I want to explain life. Then what is pragmatic? Evolution is pragmatic. It makes predictions. Okay, we are going to talk about this. In my humble opinion, it makes no predictions whatsoever. But then you like to use its formulas, and they take it a further step to say that it represents reality. And here we have to draw a very thick red line that you cannot cross. Because if you say that it represents reality, please show me those mechanisms. Don't just show me the formula. I will ask you to show me, to prove to me that space bends. That I can give you some space and you bend it. Okay? In an unequivocal way. It cannot be explained except if space is really bending, except if there is really gravity, except if this and that. And this is where the trick is.